In our Napanee Public Library collection, if you have ever browsed our new bookshelves, you'll notice the bright, colorful dots that we carry on the bindings of each title. Those dot colors are a unifier for the library staff to know what month we got particular books. And we actually house titles that are just coming into our collection for a total of 4 months before they are integrated into the shelves where they'll be found permanently. So all the books that we're going to be talking about today are from both the children's collection and the adult collection, and they're all books that we've received just in the last 4 months. That doesn't necessarily mean they've been published in the last 4 months. So some of the books have gotten new covers, been republished, and different things like that. So they might have an older copyright date, but we're basing them on the time that they were added to the Napanee Public Library collection. So let's get started. The first book I want to share with you is a graphic novel memoir. This is Almost American Girl by Robin Ha. It is a title that I got to preview before it was actually published, and when I read it, it didn't have any color in it. So I'm absolutely thrilled with the final outcome of this title. It is actually about a Seoul American girl. She's a teenager who is just kind of living her life with a single mom in Seoul, and when she visits, quote unquote, a family in Huntsville, Alabama, her mom tells her that she's getting married and that they're never going back to Seoul again, and she becomes an American citizen, but not having English as her primary language offers her lots of difficulties as she's going through high school. And it's through art, and specifically comic books, that she is able to slowly become part of the culture that she wishes to be a part of. And it's a great story. It's obviously, like I said, a graphic memoir, so Robin is the character in the book, and she's also the author. So this is going to be in our teen section, and again, this is Almost American Girl by Robin Ha. If it's a title that you'd like to read, just leave us a comment or get a hold of us, and we will put it on the hold shelf for you. This second title that we're going to be talking about today is actually going to be one of Oprah's book club picks for this year. American Dirt by Janine Cummins is one that has gotten lots of hubbub when it came out for lots of reasons, but for the primary focus that it is written from a Mexican standpoint of a woman, but the author herself is actually white. And so the controversy around that made this be a story that I wanted to read. I wanted to feel what the author was feeling when you step into somebody else's shoes, and you often get that when you read about a character who has a very diverse or gender or something, a background different than what you experience yourself. So in this story, it is about a bookstore owner and her son who are being targeted by a cartel, and they're trying to escape to America. So it is their story of being immigrants and trying to cross the border. And the only thing that I would have changed about this story, because it was so fascinating to me, was that I wish the epilogue took you farther into a current day future so you knew what was happening after the initial events. But this was a great story. I think you will like it too if you really need a book that's going to push the boundaries of what you normally read. This is American Dirt by Janine Cummins. A few years ago, Lisa Wingate, who's written many books, wrote a New York Times best-selling book called Before We Were Yours, and we highlighted that one earlier on this summer. This is her newest title. This is The Book of Lost Friends. It's going to be in our fiction section, and it's actually like a time slip. So it's written from dual perspectives. One would be quote-unquote current day, but it's really like the late 80s, early 90s. About a school teacher, and then it's also written from a slave who is a little girl, and she is being sold over and over again. Her family keeps getting split up, and she ends up on a different plantation than her immediate family, and it's told from that little girl's perspective as she's just moved all over the South, and she's trying to get back to her family based on a family heirloom that she is given. And a great story, but like I said, alternating chapters. So you're keeping track of what's happening in present day and how it is connected to the past, going back and forth between these two characters. Lisa Wingate did not disappoint in this title, and I think that you would enjoy it if you have read before We Are Yours, you're definitely probably already having this one on your radar, but if not, this would be a great standalone title for you to pick up. This particular copy that I'm holding is large print. All that means is that the text inside of the book does have a larger font, but the story is exactly the same. So whether you need a large print format book or not, this would be a title in our collection that you would be able to check out and read. Book Love by Debbie Tung is a graphic novel, but not really a novel. It's more just like cute little funny, like comic strip setup, but it's all about people who absolutely love books, and that's us. That's me, that's you, that's other library staff and readers around our community. And I got such a kick out of the jokes that only book lovers are going to understand what it means to have to wait for a sequel to come out, and how we read through books far faster than authors can write. I've actually went through and made copies of some of these and stuck them around the library and staff areas just to kind of bring some cheer to people as they're passing through different parts of the library. But this is Book Love by Debbie Tung. You can honestly probably read the entire book in a good hour, but it's one you want to hug. It's cute, and this is going to be in our nonfiction section, but currently you can find it in our new books. Color Me In is another book that I previewed back before it was actually published. This story follows some young teen girls. It's going to be a teen book by Natasha Diaz, and it's about a girl who is going through what it means to be black and the different variations of being really darkly complected or having really light skin. And in her case, our main character, Nevaeh, she is actually, she's fair-skinned, and so she can oftentimes pass as not being a black woman herself, but her friends aren't. And so she has to kind of decide where she wants to fit in, but she's also deeply immersed in the black culture and the stereotyping that goes on. This is a great story for adults, not just teenagers, that makes you think about the privileges that we come from and what our society does with profiling. This is Color Me In by Natasha Diaz, and again, it is a teen title. Our next book here, The Dozier School for Boys, is A Forensic Survivors and Painful Past by Elizabeth Murray. This is a book that I actually asked for the library collection to add because I needed to read a new nonfiction teen title. And I came across this one after reading about the Tennessee Children's Home Society a couple years ago. And I was totally enamored with the atrocious things that I learned about that school in Tennessee, and only to find out that that's obviously not the only children's home in the United States that's been under some public scrutiny. This school actually is in Florida, and it is a school for boys, and without giving too much away or what you don't know in like television interviews, this story goes into depth about what life was like for the residents of the Dozier School and all the unexplained deaths that are associated with the area around the school. So if you need something to kind of broaden your views and to teach you about something you might not know about, this would be a good title that you probably wouldn't pick up unless you had a reason to, but I would recommend it just as a great book to inform you about your past and about our country. This next title here, Echoes Between Us, is by one of my favorite teen authors. Katie McGarry is an author who I read probably close to a dozen of her titles. This is her newest book. Echoes Between Us is written from two perspectives. One would be a teenage girl whose father is a truck driver, isn't gone very often, and they own a duplex and they rent out the bottom floor. And it's not until right at the beginning of this book that she finds out the new family moving into their duplex is the most popular boy in school. And how could her father do this to her? They're from vastly different backgrounds. They don't hang out with the same groups at school. And she's going through a lot with her medical health. She's got a brain tumor, and has a history of tumors in her brain. And he's going through a lot with his mom and trying to be a parent himself. Even though he's only 17, he's almost the primary caregiver of his younger sister. So this story is a good story. It's not necessarily coming of age, but it does take place over an entire school year. And you get to meet some of the other people in their school who are some actually characters in other books that Katie has written. This one is technically a standalone title, but because readers have read other books that have her characters in it, you could read it as a second book for Every Breath You Take, which we are also going to be adding to our collection. After I read this one, I realized, we really need to have that physical book also here on our shelf. So that's going to be coming as well. If you are a fan of The Fault in Our Stars, or what are some of the other ones? Zach and Mia, any books that have like kind of a medical issue romance, this would be another one to add to that collection. So this is again Echoes Between Us by Katie McGarry. Our next book here, this is Ellie and the Heart Maker, and I really truly did not like the cover of this book, and so when books really turn me off, I judge a book by its cover. I'll be the first to admit it. This one was one of those, and I couldn't wrap my head around why somebody would just want a pheasant on a cover. Well, it turns out the pheasant actually has quite the storyline inside of this book. It is about a man who probably, but it doesn't go into depth, saying he has like adult autism and what it's like to be him, and how he has such a cycle and he always does things in a routine, and what happens when somebody breaks that routine. So Ellie stumbles across his workshop where he makes harps day in and day out, and the bond that they build and the relationship that they get into is unique. It is a romance story, but it is it's just a fun fiction book that makes you kind of realize what it's like to be a different type of character. So this is Ellie and the Heart Maker by Hazel Pryor. This next book is currently the newest book from author Rachel Hauck. She is one who, again, has written several books. Her newest book is going to be coming out this fall. And this one here is the Fifth Avenue Story Society, and it actually takes place in 5 perspectives. It is a book, it's a story who alternates between all these vastly different characters, and they're all invited to join this story society at a library. And so they all go for different reasons, different backgrounds, and nobody knows who invited them, and even at the end of the story, nobody knows who invited them. But they build these connections and they build community with each other where they probably never would have even crossed paths to begin with. The Fifth Avenue Story Society is housed in our inspirational fiction section. However, it's not overly preachy. Only one of the characters has a biblical story to it. The rest of them are definitely down on their luck, going through a lot of changes in their own families. And this is a book that I think would be for everybody, even if you don't tend to read inspirational fiction books normally.
Nate Smith said, "Hi, Maggie. You are so intelligent."
Hi, Beth. I'm sure it's not Nate who's watching this. I hope you're having a great day. If there's any books that we're mentioning today that sound like something that you would like to check out, please leave us a message, get in contact with us, and we can put them on the hold shelf with your name on them to pick up. Our next title is Internment by Samira Amin. This is a teen title that is supposed to be dystopian. A dystopian is another way that we can catalog books that are futuristic, but this book is, I don't have another way of describing it other than saying it is next day believable. Current events in our society, different political situations make this book absolutely not feel futuristic. It feels like it's something that's coming, and after the year that we've had, oh my goodness, if somebody got a hold of this book and said, hey, what a great idea this is to put people who are different than us into American internment camps and see what happens, that would just be the cherry on top for our year. So I don't say it lightly. This book is one, again, to make you think. Internment is a book about resistance and putting your best foot forward. And it is a title for all ages, not just for teenagers. It will definitely make you think about how you look at different cultures in the melting pot of America. This is by Samira Amid. Our next title is a new biography. We have quite a diverse collection of biographies here in our library collection. This one here is by Loretta Lynn. This is Me and Patsy, Kicking Up Dust, My Friendship with Patsy Cline. This book, I literally read it in a day. I think I read it in like 3 hours. And I loved the pictures inside. And I don't know if you're anything like me, but I just assume that anybody who's on TV knows anybody else that's on TV. And I know that's not always the case, but the same goes for the music industry. So if you're a fan of, I call it old school country music, you'll be very familiar with Patsy Cline and Loretta Lynn. But other than the small little parts in the Coal Miner's Daughter movie, I didn't really realize what a impact they had on each other, and how they made the industry come together, how they had a niche, and how Patsy really took Loretta under her wing as she came into the music industry. I mean, she even taught the lady how to shave her legs. So if you're looking for a great story about character names that you know, but you might not know much about, this would be a great biography and a quick read for you to pick up. This is Me and Patsy, Kicking Up Dust, My Friendship with Patsy Cline by Loretta Lynn. I also found myself looking up all the different music and the songs and the lyrics that she was talking about in each chapter. So it was really fun for me to kind of do a multimedia read while I was going through those pages. Our next story is a fiction romance. Love Lettering takes place in New York City. It's about a lady who owns like a stationery shop who does custom design work. And in the middle of designing wedding invitations, she kind of has this epiphany that she's designing a wedding invitation for a couple that she really doesn't think is going to make it. And hindsight, nearly a year down the road, the groom of those invitations comes back in, has figured out her decipher that she put in the invitations that she designed, and has said, "How did you know that my relationship was not going to work out? I didn't even know that we weren't going to make it in the long run." And the discussions that they have and the bonds that they build, and then the future relationship that those two people build, makes this a unique story. Again, it is a romance. This is Love Lettering by Kate Claiborne. And if you're looking for a romance, this might be one for you. Our next title is going to be from our children's collection. This one is Mermaid and Me by Shosh. I literally designed a preschool story time around this one for coming up. I loved this story. If you know me at all, I am a huge fan of mermaids, so of course I had to make sure this book was in our library collection. I was the first person to check it out, and it actually hasn't even been on the shelf yet for the public. So we'll get it on there soon, and you can check this book out yourself, or you can put it on hold. But this children's picture book, the watercolorings inside just had me totally enamored. And this story is about a little girl who is bound and determined that there is a mermaid, and she is somebody who she can spend time with. And when her classmates don't know who she is and don't really appreciate who she is as a person, she can go to the water's side, and the mermaid will be her friend. In this story, it takes it's kind of an environmental story too, because in the end, she her mermaid gets caught up in nets, and she begs and begs and begs her classmates, "Please come help me. I know you don't believe in my mermaid, but I promise she's real and she needs our help." So after a storm, when all the litter comes up onto the ocean and the mermaid gets hung up in the nets, they do work together, and it's a diverse cast of characters, so you can always find yourself or find your children in the pictures themselves. But it talks about how important it is to take care of our ocean, which is a unifying message for anybody in all ages. And what I absolutely, positively loved is at the end of the story, after they've grown up and they've built their own lives, they come back and they show their families to each other, and they're always friends. So it's a great story for families, for just acceptance and being different, but still being accepted with the group that you choose to be a part of. So this is Mermaid and Me by Shosh. My next title, I honestly was kind of apprehensive about adding into this Book Bites. It's here because it's new. We've gotten it just in the last 4 months, but it can hit a little close to home. This is about a global pandemic. So here you go. This is The Red Lotus by Chris Bohalian. I featured one of his other books, The Flight Attendant, on our Mysteries and Suspense Book Bites a couple of weeks ago. This title itself actually takes place kind of transcontinental, so it is a mostly American story, but it has some traveling overseas in Vietnam, and you don't know which way to go. So this one is also suspense. You understand that they are trying to keep a pandemic from happening and trying to keep this, I don't even know what to say, like a contaminant, trying to keep it from getting out into mainstream media, but their efforts fail. And so this is a story that was written way before coronavirus actually was a thing and was something we needed to worry about. In this story, it's transmitted through rats, so hopefully you don't have too many of those lying around. But if you're looking for a story to make you think, that's not going to really push you over the edge with trigger warnings based on our current events, this could be a story that is for you. This is by Chris Bohalian, and it's The Red Lotus. Our next book is a Reese Witherspoon book club pick. This is The Scent Keeper, and it's about Emmeline and her love interest Fisher, but it's also a coming of age story. So Emmeline's dad has kind of removed her from culture, and they live on an uninhabited beach, an uninhabited island, all to themselves. They make do with what they have, and they get deliveries every once in a while that come in. But Emmeline is totally secluded from culture. She doesn't know anything other than what her father has told her. And he has created a machine that can capture smells. And we know that smell can be like something that keeps track of our memories. So this creation that he made and what it did to him mentally and how he chose to remove him and Emmeline from society and to move to this island all by themselves, that in itself is a story worth reading. But it's a coming of age story, so it starts when Emmeline is little, it follows through her teen years and how her life is impacted living alone. And it goes until she's older, and then, like I said, she falls in love with Fisher. And at the end of this story, even though you've been tracking her for like decades, you want to know what keeps happening. You don't want the book to end because you're so invested in what has happened to her emotionally and physically that you just want the book to keep going and going. So if you're looking for a great book to really get lost in, The Scent Keeper by Erica Baumeister, hopefully I'm saying her name right, is a title that you would like to read. Again, this is a book that's going to be on our new bookshelves. If it's one that you're interested in, just let us know and we can put you on hold for it. I have only a few more titles to share with you today, but our new book collection is extensive. So if you ever come in, make sure you stop in that main corridor there just across from the computer lab, and you can check out all the titles for yourself that are new, and we also have a large children's new bookshelf as well. So we'll find something for you when you come in. Our next title here is a nonfiction biography. She Came to Slay is the Life and Times of Harriet Tubman by Erica Armstrong Dunbar. I know this much about Harriet Tubman. Obviously, she was an integral part of the Underground Railroad, but this book actually starts with her great-grandmother. So you get kind of the lineage of what Harriet was born into, her family tree, and then after reading about all of them in the first couple of chapters, then Harriet is born. And so you get to know about her and her siblings and her upbringing and what an awful childhood that she had. being a slave herself, and how she chose to run away, and then could she run away, and all those mixed up emotions, and in the physical abuse that she went through. I mean, even a storekeeper smashed her over the head, and she suffered from a broken skull the majority of her life. And how none of those obstacles daunted her or kept her from doing what we all know her for, as being a leader on the Underground Railroad. But that's not the only thing. Her servitude towards other people, and then some of the things that she advocated for later on in life after slavery became abolished, is just amazing. So I found this book incredibly intriguing. And again, it follows from before she's actually born through after she actually passes away, but it's her entire life story, not just what we all know about the Underground Railroad. So She Came to Slay, The Life and Times of Harriet Tubman might be a book for you. So during quarantine, my sister texted me and she said, "Are you watching any show on Netflix? Are you binge watching anything?" Well, I hadn't been. I like to read rather than watch TV. And she said, "You need to look up this book, or this TV show. It's called The Sweet Magnolias, and then we'll talk about it." So she messaged me that on a Saturday evening, like late after my kids had gone to bed. And by the time that church rolled around the next morning, I had watched all 10 episodes, and I just wanted more. Well, okay, in the captions of every beginning episode, it says, based on the books written by Cheryl Woods. So I had to do some research. What about these characters? What about these three women? So there's Helen, Dana Sue, and... oh goodness, I just forgot her name. Helen, Dana Sue, and Maddie. And they are the Sweet Magnolias, and this is the town that they grow up in, and the families that they have, and how they've carved out their own niches in the community. And this book itself was actually written like 20 years ago, and there's 11 books that then Netflix has taken, and with some help of screenwriters, they've developed it into a Netflix show. So if you, like me, probably watched it, or you plan to read the books and then watch the show, there are definitely some vastly different things. Netflix has taken great liberties to diversify the cast, which I think does a great job at bringing lots of cultural diversity into the story itself. If you're reading the books, the storylines they're different. They don't match up completely. Some things happen to one character in the books that's different in the movies or in the Netflix show. But if you like to watch something and then read it, or vice versa, this would be a new series for you to check out. We don't have all the books in the collection just yet, but they are coming. I know for sure we have the first two. So this is Stealing Home, and this is Cal and Maddie's love story. And then our last book for today is also a romance. This is the second book in the Undercover Bromance series. The first one is a little bit different. It's a book that I picked up because of the cover. I've mentioned that before, that I'm definitely intrigued by the covers. An illustrated book cover like this is kind of the new theme with romances, and this one is not any different, other than the main characters are men. So in this story, or in the series, in all of it, there is a men's book club, and they work together to read romance stories so that they can learn from the protagonists in the stories that they read, and then they take the skills and the lessons that they learn from the books and they use them into the relationships that they have. Oftentimes the characters are married, and it's about restoring the relationships they have versus starting new romances. So that was a unique thing, along with being a male-dominated storyline, is that they're not new relationships. They're not meet-cute stories. They're building and maintaining those marriages and those long-term relationships that they have. So the first book kind of builds the scene for how that book club got started, and how they're all really popular, important people in their community, and how they gather and nobody knows they're reading romances. But by this book, they're shopping for their next romance title in a bookstore, and everybody knows that they do it. So again, a great story that is still being written. I think the third one comes out this fall. So if you're looking for something new, this might be a title for you. So I hope you've enjoyed Book Bites with Maggie. We've had so much fun highlighting lots of different genres the last couple of weeks here at the Nappanee Public Library. We have decided to continue Book Bites on, so we look forward to sharing lots of new titles and different genres with you, probably starting this next year. We'll get into a routine of having some time where we can make videos to share titles that we have in our collection for those of you who are at home and looking for something to read. Thanks for joining me today. I hope to see you in person very soon, but definitely give us a shout out if you saw any books today that intrigued you, and we can put them on the hold shelf for you to pick up at your convenience. We are open regular business hours 7 days a week, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks.